lost the stuff that I had.
All right, good, thanks for coming. So hopefully you all are here to talk about the forest plan revision process for the Lolo National Forest. Right? That's good. And this is our second to the last meeting that we're going to have. So this would be the last geographic area discussion that we'll have. On the Missoula district, we got the 3 geographic areas, and we've already talked about Rock Creek and the greater Missoula area. Tonight our focus is on the Lolo Creek area. So I'm really glad we got a few new faces here. We've had a chance to focus already on the Lolo Peak area, and so tonight I'd encourage the facilitators at each table to kind of continue keeping the discussion broad about Lolo Creek. You may have some questions specific to the management areas in Lolo Peak, but we're going to try to maintain the discussion back to the areas that we haven't had focus on yet, the rest of the area in Lolo Creek. All right? We're going to try to finish up our discussions and have a report out per table at 9 o'clock tonight. And then before we leave, we'll have a report out. It takes maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever, any kind of general discussion. And then, before we leave, I'd love to get your thoughts on how we should spend our final meeting, which is 2 weeks from tonight on September 1st here in this building. So we've got a couple of thoughts that we have internally, but want to hear you guys' thoughts on how we could best utilize our time on that last night. So that's it for me tonight. Any questions at all about process, and we'll turn it over to the tables. Okay, great.
People raise their hands because there are some handouts that you probably need.
So you guys were, you have to. You have this one, Gerald? Do you have a question, Gerald?
This is,
Okay,
And for anybody else that wants these as well, what these are the definitions about the management areas. Many of us are becoming quite familiar with those definitions by now, but you'll see if you've got some questions about just what is MA 20 or 2.2. So you can go in there and read it.
Before we get started, though, I wanted to introduce the folks that are here from the Ranger District and the Forest tonight. Over here at this table, we've got Andy Kula. Andy is our staff officer at the district in charge of recreation, wilderness, weeds, range, you name it, he's got it. I'm going to be at this table over here, and I'm Maggie Pittman. I work as the ranger at the district. Right here, we've got Karen Wickersham. Karen is our forest budget officer. She's really a whiz with numbers, so unfortunately, you might be bored of them talking about
I don't think so.
pieces of country.
We're talking about 1.1 and 1.2.
That's right. There we go. There you go.
10 acres.
Yeah, that's right. Over here we got Don Stadler. Don is our National Environmental Policy Act Coordinator at the district. Bev Yelshin is our representative from the Forest Plan Revision Team tonight. Chuck Sperry is off for the week. So Bev is a forester on the team, and she is going to help us with kind of the forest planning process floating expertise tonight. And then Sharon Sweeney is our Forest Public Affairs Officer.
And Maggie Pittman is our district ranger on the Missoula Range.
Yeah, I already said that.
Oh, you did?
But you know, that's kind of redundant. They just like, yeah, whatever. So, okay, any questions? We're good to go? Okay. Sharon, anything you need to add?
I would just add, does everybody have a copy of the Lolo Creek geographic area description?
And I want to emphasize it's
Yeah, the geographic area description.
very, very draft. So
I know that we've got a lot of paper in front of us and stuff, but my recommendation would be that we take a good 10 quiet minutes, or 5 if that's all it takes, but to read this. I think it's 4 pages long. 3 pages long.
Sharon, does every table have a form for the agreements? And
I think so. Does every facilitator?
do we have it here? Oh, perfect, thank you.
All right. You've got one? Yeah.
And if everybody can introduce themselves around each table, that'd be great.
So, again, let's take 5 or 10 minutes to read this thing and become familiar with, this is your introduction to the Lolo Creek geographic area, then we'll begin our discussion.
I'm Tom Wolfen. Nobody heard that.
Tom, who do you represent? What's your interest?
I'm with the Western Montana Trail Riders Association.
Okay.
that's right, you were at the,
Good, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. Larry?
Larry Hamilton, I live on Mill Creek Road in
Just though you've been through something.
Yeah. What happened?
Oh, I broke my little finger and had to have surgery done on it this morning, so
Oh my goodness.
I'm still in recovery. If I go off on a tangent, you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't know.
That means I'm always in
If you
recovery.
got any of those pills, you better share them.
I'm Jan Custodiak, and I'm just a recreational.
Good.
Daphne Hurling, Friends of Lolo Peak.
I'm Lisa Thompson. I run the bed and breakfast business, and I do a lot of hiking.
Good. Good. I'm Maggie. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Beverly Dupree with the Great Burn Study Group.
Mike Berger, interested as well.
Good. Larry, what's your last name?
Ford.
Larry Ford. Okay, got it. Stay with
Used to be Chevy till you found out Ford was
Good. Okay. All right.
You're going to take a lot of food over there.
Good. So you guys want to take a couple minutes, we'll read through this geographic area right up, and we can mark this up, you can give me some comments on it at the end of the night, you can take it with you. But ideally, what we're after, what our exercise is tonight is to kind of come to areas that we have agreement on, and things that we don't agree on, we can track, and then I'll report out, or somebody else from the group can. So take a few minutes to look over it, take a look at the map, whatever. Talk about right off the bat. Any brothers? You all have done this before, it sounds like.
Start at the top, go to the bottom.
Okay? It's easiest to do it that way, I think. Well then, let's see, here's the area that we're looking at. Is everybody ready to just start talking about the recommended wilderness? We've got 1.2, and the preferred option, we show just this light green area here.
And here.
Oh my goodness.
We talked about this already.
Yep, we did. And that's, I was gonna say, this will be kind of a quick fill, but there it is. This is a great bird. Yeah, yeah.
Can we, look, is this the current?
This is the existing condition underneath here. Should be, yep, there you go. You wanna yank it down? We could just pull it down just enough you can see both, if that'll work. You could turn over half of that map. You want to,
Do you mind
go ahead and
folding?
fold it, not a problem. We'll just fold it at your long end down there. Will that work? Then you want to fold it half length? Roll again, great. Okay, so what do we got there? So right here, that's where that is where the Granite Pass Road comes off of the Lolo Pass Road, Highway 12 right in here.
That's the up to Granite Peak.
Exactly. Now, I need to tell you that there are, across the forest, there are several things that have been missed in terms of mapping, and we are keeping a collective a list of those internally, but the team knows that we just made, when we initially drafted some of these maps, we missed some mapping things, and one of them exists in this area. This particular line for recommended wilderness actually comes down all the way down to where the Granite Pass Road is. Yes, except I think it takes a little bit more. And we don't have it mapped here tonight accurately how we want it, but this will be something that will probably, once it rolls out into the general preferred option for general public review, it'll be right as we intend it to be for the preferred option.
So if you said we could draw lines on it, let's
Absolutely,
draw a line on
we
this.
can mark it up, yeah.
So this is in the current forest.
That is.
Recommended.
This is, yeah, it is, yeah.
So it's not that you're reducing.
No, and that's what this preferred option map is a mistake. It should come down, it follows this section line here, and I think if I'm not mistaken, it takes in that whole thing there.
And would it come over here to this corner along here too?
I don't believe we put that part in, let's see where this is. No, this goes up the section line
And
right
straight across from
there.
the section, so it
Where was
would,
I?
right here. It would come here.
We come up like this, there you go. And
Across that
then all to there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I have it in black, it looks just like the rest of it, but it kind of follows, and it's on this side of the highway.
Okay, so we need to put 1.2 right there.
Yeah.
Or Creek is not in the section we're talking about.
Where is that, Oriole?
Yeah.
Now, where's the lookout tower that's out there?
So you just have to know.
White,
There's
there's a road
White
that
Creek.
goes up to White Mountain.
Yeah, there
And
is.
so it must be in this area.
Is it on this ridge here? Is this the ridge up here?
Yeah, or maybe right here.
The road's not maintained very well. You can't get up that much four-wheel drive. But there are some nice trails coming down off of that, getting back over towards the top of the pass.
So in our preferred option, where is White Creek? There it is.
That's the
Okay.
area we're discussing.
Yeah, it is, it is, in fact, Tom, that is on the 9 Mile District. So that particular piece of country you're talking about is off of the Missoula District. So for their particular mapping, you want to check their map. You can see what they're proposing, but he may want to include his suggestions to that.
Road as it goes up to it. There's a couple trails that come off.
So assuming this is
Yeah, go down to the creek.
One goes back out to junction in there where there's 4212 comes down to that one.
we don't have any of the road numbers on here.
Now, is that up around Oriole and White Creek? Is that between those two?
I think it's on this divide.
Yeah.
Looks like the lookout's up.
Well, the
Oh, okay.
or you can take off on a trail. It's a trail that's been established. The trees have all been cleared out, and it's a nice trail. You can't get a vehicle up.
Right.
So, Tom, this one, since it's on the 9 Mile District, it looks like they've got it as 4.1 there, which would mean that the roads would be, there'd be motorized use and allowed in there. But you'll probably want to call those folks there to get specifics about that.
Because it actually comes back out. The trail actually comes back down.
To the Missoula District, back out to the, yeah.
Along
Yeah.
through Plum Creek and for this 4.1.
Comes out in that area. I mean, without the roads on there, it's real hard to tell.
Yep, it is hard. Okay. Well, what about, I think we're good here, what about this area? Is there any,
Well,
you have any, Larry?
good with that.
Yeah, so let's hear your thoughts about it.
Well, I don't think there's any advantage to the general public of having more proposed wilderness as opposed to having it as 2.2. And I live up there, and I would like to see a little more management options available for that area. That proposed wilderness is going to totally close the Lantern Ridge Trail.
Oh, Lantern Ridge is down, oh, you're talking down here. Okay, I'm sorry, I was thinking up here. Well, this part, Larry, your concerns about this were probably noted at the Lolo Peak meeting on those forums that we had. Because we had plenty of, when we reported out, remember that night, were you there when we reported out and there were folks that voiced their concerns about this? Do you have specific concerns about this 1.2?
Well, yeah, because I don't think it's compatible with what's going on the Idaho side. We had people at the last meeting that were saying, well, we can't have that. The problem that from their side was that since the trails and roads and all that are open on the Idaho side to everybody, then they were having conflicts with it being wilderness on the Montana side because the trail goes in and out of the state. The other side,
The last thing I got on that is they're trying to close the Clearwater Forest down completely. All the way from the Panhandle all the way down, so once that comes closed, if we don't do something now to help stop it and keep the roads open and stuff, and then it will be moot.
Well, you guys, what I talked to Gene Thompson about relative to the snowmobilers' suggestion is that this particular line here allows the use of the road that the snowmobilers have said that they like to use to get them up over this divide and down into an area on the Clearwater. And from what I understand, this particular area is not, it's farther south than their proposed their preferred option.
Well, the road that's gonna be a real bugaboo to get anything going between the Idaho border and Montana is the Crooked Fork. It comes off into Granite Pass. it goes on to
Right,
Crooked Fork.
right, it's up a little ways up to here, yeah.
No, no, it's farther down into here. Down, well, yeah, be right
This
into
is,
here.
yeah, okay,
The Granite Pass.
So if-
The lots of lodge be right about in here.
all right.
In that Crooked Fork here, they're trying to get that open, and we're trying to get the Beaver Ridge Road open on the south side, so we
Okay.
can come up, back around, and make a big loop.
So it's a question of, one, providing some opportunities for some snowmobile? Is it mostly
And
snowmobile?
four-wheeler.
Okay,
And single track.
Yeah, what we're looking for is a continuous trail. We don't want to just run 2 miles up a road and stop and have to turn around.
All right.
We want an actual loop.
so a loop opportunity, and we want to see what kind of matching we can do with the Clearwater, so we need to see what they've proposed here. We don't have any, we're not looking at agreement at our table on this particular thing. I don't know if we're split.
Well, I can say that the Great Burn Study Group supports the proposal, the old forest plan, and if that's going to be expanded a little bit, that's what I
Right, that's what our
understand.
preferred
This
option is.
Then we would support that, and for this, the opposite reason, as you said, that it does tie in with the Clearwater side, which is also being managed as recommended wilderness, and that huge chunk right there is really wild country, and we'd like to see that stay wild.
Okay, so there's a division then at the table, so this area north, we think, and I think you're right, that this area is what the Clearwater is suggesting is recommended, and I don't know what they're doing down here, do you know?
I don't know what they're doing south of here.
Yeah, this side of the highway.
Yeah, see, I talked to Joni from down there, Power Ranging Station, Joni Packer.
Right.
And she didn't get real specific about what they were gonna do, but she told me that they were trying to close the whole area down.
Okay, all right.
On that Beaver Ridge, which is just south of Waxhaw Lodge, it goes up in towards Westport View, the Skookum View.
Right,
That'd make a great big loop.
And that's south of Highway 12?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's not affected by
No,
this?
Yeah, you all are looking in this, more in this area here, yeah. Okay, well then, are we okay, I don't know, where do you weigh in at? Maybe we should let everybody have a chance to, and if you don't wanna weigh in, that's fine.
You can see it all close up.
Okay, all right, so far we're almost evenly split, how about you?
I'm fine, just take it on newspapers and
Okay, all right,
reading the newspaper articles.
okay.
Take it.
Daphne?
Yeah. Well, I want to see this this continued, but I do hear you guys wanting your loop down through here and have no problem with some, not through the wilderness obviously, but, and I don't know this area well enough to know how you would join up the loop south of 12.
See, for me, one of the reasons I don't like things closed down is I love going out in the back. And I'm disabled and I cannot bike it, and I cannot ride a horse in it, and I cannot ride a bike.
Right,
So with me, closing everything down is discrimination against disability, disabled. So I'm
okay,
the real rough stuff, like Rock Creek, I don't plan on going in.
right,
Because it's real hard to get any type of an ATV or four-wheeler in there because of that. I'm not into rock climbing. I am into going out and looking at the backcountry and hunting and everything. And I want access for me and other disabled people.
okay. Well, what I'm doing here, Tom, I'm sorry, Jane, right? Lisa, I'm sorry. I knew it was Lisa. I just wanted to see if you remembered. Lisa, what's your feeling about
I
this?
support the preferred alternative of including as much of this area for wilderness edition as it's drawn right here.
Okay, so
And I don't think that every acre of the forest can be used by every single individual. And I don't think it should be drawn up so that every individual can use every acre. There's room enough in the forest for everybody to use a section or to enjoy part of the forest. I don't want to be using an area with motorized use. I like quiet when I'm in the forest. So I want you to be over here somewhere when I'm here.
But you can't deny me from going anywhere because I'm disabled. I mean, you can't
yes.
tell me I can't go somewhere.
You can go anywhere that your motorized use says that you can, according to forest plans, as far as I'm concerned. If this area is close to motorized use, I don't expect to see you there.
I can't guarantee that.
Well, you should if you're a law-abiding citizen.
Well, the problem is right now on that state line trail, I can't tell you the exact pass that it goes to. I know it's before Cedar Log Lakes and that. But there's a snowdrift up there that blocks motorized use until about the middle of August or end of August. So physically, it's pretty much closed beyond that point. But the majority of the use on that state line trail right now has been motorized.
Okay, well, I'm thinking it seems to me we're pretty well split at the table, which is fine, that we don't have agreement on the 1.2 in this area. And so what I've noted is that you all have suggested that we look to some loop trails for motorized use, and disabled access is a concern, and that just about split with the wilderness recommendation, which is our preferred option. I've said half in favor of and half not, and we want to know what the Clearwater National Forest is doing on their side. Okay, so anything I've missed? Right here?
Is this the total acreage you want?
Just on, this is just the Lolo forest. And these are the different management areas across the whole
How many
forest.
acres in each?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So how many total acres are in Montana?
Ooh, in Montana.
I have that person I know that knows that is sitting at that table.
Yeah, Steve would know that,
I'm
yeah.
just curious how, the acres of the state versus the acres that are wilderness.
I couldn't answer that,
Well,
but
I do know that Lolo has like about 4% wilderness.
Right now?
Or 6%, yeah, currently, which is one of the lowest percentages of wilderness on all the national forests.
oh, really? Yes.
And does that include cell?
Well, it's not,
Lolo
we
doesn't
talk
have
about,
any to sell.
yeah, that's the Bitterroot.
It doesn't take into consideration all the adjacent forest. Now,
Well, that was just.
If you're talking about Lolo Forest Acres, you only look at Lolo Forest Acres.
well, I understand, but if you look at the map, everything from here north is wilderness and everything from there south is wilderness.
Right, so just the Lolo
It's
has,
real hard to say that when you're living in Missoula, there's no wilderness.
Willows all around us.
the Missoula district that we're focused on tonight is roughly 500,000 acres. So it's not
Total, is that total?
for the Missoula district, yeah.
And we don't need to pass this around, but one of the big concerns we have is with the roadless area and the wilderness areas, basically any trails that are on the forest pretty much go from the bottom to the top. And most of the tops now are considered for roadless or wilderness. So this isn't the Lolo forest, but it's kind of graphic that all the trails that are green are already closed year-round down there. The trails in red go to areas that would be closed under the Lolo plan. So it's just, I don't have to pass this around, but you can see by the time you take the green and the red out, there's no trails left for motorists at all. So,
All right.
Larry, can I take that?
Are you all okay if we move on to, are there any, there has to be 2.1 in here because we've got it listed. 2.1 for Lolo Creek, what color are we looking at? This is the Wild and Scenic River. Are you all okay if we move on to 2.1? Larry, you all right if we move on to 2.1?
yeah.
And that is the Wild and Scenic River designation. And these on the Lolo, we've kind of opted to designate most of these for recreational designation. So you have a wild, scenic, and recreational designation. And what if we have it in our preferred option, it means that, like if we had an area that we would recommend for wilderness, Congress has to act on that to actually designate it as such. So it just gives it an area a little bit of protection. And I'm not sure, I can't see what the name of that creek is there.
That's the
It's
South Fork
Fork.
of Lolo.
Is that the
Yeah.
South Fork of Lolo? Okay, all right.
You can basically step across it without anywhere on it.
So are we in agreement?
So, any discussion about
I'm
that?
opposed to all these feel-good designations.
Okay,
Because I
why?
think down the line, they're going to use an excuse to close it. Close access, close trails, close roads. I know the recreational, makes, possible exceptions, not guaranteed exceptions.
How about that, Larry? You know, in Rock Creek, it's the same designation there, and all the fuel reduction work that we do now, all the homes that are in that area, it's not a real level of protection. It's more of in terms of managing the land adjacent, it's more the water, the fishery, those kind of things within that area, and it allows certain developments like campgrounds and those kind of things that are in there.
It restricts within, I believe it's a quarter-mile on either side of the
It does, but
stream as to what you can and can't do.
that's true. You might need to do some reading though in some of the other stuff we've got here relative to what the recreational status allows and doesn't allow. And I don't know if anybody has that.
do have
I know wild and scenic prohibits motorized, only recreational would include any.
Oh, you know, down in the Gallatin, that's a designated wild and scenic river, all along the Gallatin River down along that highway before the Big Sky. It's got a highway right next to it. And all those homes.
I'm just saying that historically, whenever all this stuff starts getting, it's like the backcountry.
Yeah,
I
it just
think
makes
the
you
motorized
nervous that
people
they.
are pretty much in favor of the roadless and backcountry area. But the Lolo Forest has decided those will all be non-motorized. The Bitterroot Forest has decided that, as the executive order stated, existing roads and trails will be open.
Well, let's answer your question on the recreation. Do you have that in that? Is that in there?
This is the only thing.
I was thinking the one, does
It does
anybody
not-
have the management area themes right up? Yeah, that's it, that's
Oh,
it.
this one, yeah.
There you go. And 2.1, it talks about the recreation segment. Recreational rivers are sections of rivers accessible by road or railroad that may have some shoreline development and may have had an impoundment or diversion in the past. Let's see, general suitability for these, the recreation river segments. They're not suitable for commercial, this is commercial timber production, although timber harvest including salvage for multiple use reasons can occur. These areas are generally suitable for commercial use of forest products. Generally suitable for commercial communication site. They're generally suitable for livestock grazing, managed fire use to promote ecosystem function, and suitable for motorized use on designated roads and trails.
So that's pretty open, yeah, that's 2.1, the recreational section of 2.1, not the wild. The wild
The wild is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of ours are designated for that recreational emphasis. So
Well,
is
it's
there,
my understanding that that's not the case.
well, you got it right there in black and white, so we got it right here. You read it here first.
So every single one of these that's been designated on the Lolo Forest
Is for the recreational river segment, yeah, including Rock Creek. And this would be one that you would think if we were gonna go for preservation and we'd do wild. And this doesn't meet the wild standard at all. It's just too many developments there. So, any complete disagreement on it? Larry, I know you're starting to feel better about that.
I'm still skeptical, because every time we try to work with anybody, it always ends up kicking us in the butt, so.
Would you be willing to say we generally agree that the 2.1 designation in South Fork of Lolo Creek is probably okay?
As long as it's recreation.
Okay. We good there? Okay. 2.1, okay, as long as it's, okay. Good.
Well, look at Highway US 12, the Oxide River. It's a wild and scenic river. I mean, that's a major US highway. And it is a drive through the wilderness, basically. And it's a gem in this country. Absolute gem. I don't know anywhere else in the United States that you could drive that many miles through forested areas with a beautiful river beside you all the time.
It is really pretty. Yeah, I do think so. That wasn't very long ago. Unless I'm driving. I'm okay if it's steering wheel.
Trouble is kids can't drive.
So can we move on then? Are you all okay to? Now 2.2 in this area is the backcountry, and let's
That
see,
was the Lolo Peak
we have
area.
this area here, just the south end of the Petty Creek drainage. And this would join the Greater Missoula discussion. Did you all talk about this last time? And adjacent to the 9 Mile District, is the contiguous.
Now, where's I-90 run through there at?
This is I-90 here, right? So that would be managed as backcountry, and the backcountry designation is, I'm sorry, yeah. You guys, do you need me to do any review of 2.2?
Are there any trails or existing roads in that area right now?
Yeah.
There's a road right here.
That's outside
These
the
are
area we're
roads
talking
here, aren't these, isn't it?
This is what we're dealing with right here.
Right, and so he was just asking about the whole area. But here, I'm not sure if that's just a creek or a road. They're the same color, unfortunately, on here.
That is Grave Creek
Yeah,
East Fork, right?
Yeah,
I'm reading
that's
upside down.
a creek.
You can check it on the map under your hand.
I think that's Printer's Creek. I can't see.
The one north of Graves Creek?
This right here is where the main road is.
No, that's
The
Petty,
Petty Creek turns
these are all
into,
creeks.
Yeah.
but I think this is Petty Creek.
Oh,
right?
I see,
So
there's a road along it. I'm
goes
sorry.
all
along the
Yeah.
It turns into Graves Creek Road on the Highway 12 side.
Gotcha,
There's trails all over.
yeah.
So Tom, take a look at the southern end before you get to Plum Creek. So you'd be further, are you at I-90 there? Or is that the
12.
Okay, that's Highway 12?
Yeah, off of 12, here's Graves Creek here.
There you go. So it'd be that,
See,
that
all
piece of
those
country
red-
right in
that's
there where
all
your
road.
pen is.
All of it. Graves Creek goes all the way through, comes over into Blue Mountain, goes all the way across, comes out into Sleeman Gulch out of Lolo, comes out of Woodwood,
With
comes out.
2.2, Maggie, if there is an existing historic use trail, is that grandfathered in?
I don't know. I'm not certain about that, Daphne, because I don't know that area that well.
Whether
it's
of an
already
existing, because I remember you talking about Graves Creek last time we were together. And that was a road that you guys used a lot, is that right?
Correct.
That whole area away to the line, if you want to make a big move, you can go all the way from Blue Mountain, all the way to Fishing, all the way to Tarfield. You come all the way back down there, and it went very big route.
See, now this is, the question that I think is going to come up across the forest is the notion of non-motorized and motorized routes, designated routes in the backcountry areas. And that question that you asked is the one that I don't know that there is a clear-cut black and white answer to that. And I think that we're going to find that as we get into the general comment period, we're going to hear more specifics about certain opportunities like you all were talking about. There's a reason that we think that this area is well suited to a backcountry designation. Specific routes that are motorized, non-motorized, staying on designated routes, maybe things that we have to deal with in a travel planning situation.
See, that's what I was talking about before, though. They get into a point where they're gonna go into an inventory drill this area. if they come up and have a monetary funding shortage later on, they're gonna come into a point where they're gonna declassify those roads and they'll be closed forever. So that's why I say, if you don't keep them open now, they'll never be open again.
Yeah, we are not making decisions now to close any roads.
No, that's what I'm saying.
So what your guys' concerns are is that perhaps you're fine with the backcountry designation, but you want to see what we can do to maintain the designated routes. But, okay,
Existing legal ones?
Yeah,
existing
and I'm okay with that.
designated, legal designated routes, those that are
Yeah.
included in the forest plan now. And I don't know if I've got my travel plan map with us. Yeah, I don't, we may have one over there.
I've got one.
Do you have one, Daphne? So we could take a look at that area and see what routes you guys are specifically talking about.
Well, and that particular area there's been
There you
under
go,
a lot of conflict because the intent of the Wilderness Study Act and the roadless executive order from Clinton was that existing uses be maintained.
Exactly.
And the Forest Service has decided to close all those motorized uses and not have any designated legal access.
And they're not getting public access, they're just going in there and say they don't have the money and then they close it.
Now, see, I've not heard of that happening. I don't think that that's happened on the Lolo.
Well, it happens on every single one of these roadless areas.
Yes, it has.
If we can't do anything like that without having an environmental assessment, without public comment.
I understand that, but
They're closed.
if you want to
But
look at
currently,
the
in the-
existing trails, there's only like 17 miles, I think, of existing motorized
Lolo Creek,
designated
70
trails.
between Evils.
But there currently aren't any in that area now, right? Because it's currently managed as MA11, which is non-motorized.
Well, but the original intent of the MA11 and the Wilderness Study Act was to maintain existing uses, which included motorized.
I don't think MA11 and the Wilderness Study Act are related.
This is the
Because
existing
MA11 is part of the forest
That's
plan.
the existing management.
Present,
They're two different.
we've got 5 trails, Maggie, in this area, 28 miles and not contiguous. They got a possible trail route within Petty Mountain, MA11. And we allocate to MA27, reopen only existing trails. That's 718, 8T, 731, and 719. That's the only ones that they're thinking about going. If they close everything else, we'll have nothing.
Okay, all right, so Daphne, what do you show?
This is a
This-
roadless.
Okay, this is part of the roadless area.
This is, this piece here, there is the
See, I show on this map here, Daphne, this is the existing condition. It shows that this area, right here, is down here. So it would be in this, kind of 5.1, 4.1
okay, so
area.
that's further down. This is Grave Creek Meadows right here.
Yeah.
This is the East Fork.
Where's the East Fork?
Yeah,
Possible if, let's assume.
and this is Bear Creek.
So that must be that part.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
So what you're
That
looking
section
at
is this
that-
one.
What that's
Right.
adding from here is across like this.
That's
the
this
roads
chunk
in.
right
So
there.
it's, and that doesn't look like it has roads.
Yeah, see, what it is, the restriction is that the motorized use takes place on the designated routes. So that's what, and so like Scott Beverly brought up that in this designation here, this use that's already existing, you asked the question that that would carry over until we do some travel management planning and decisions.
How new is this map?
This is the current travel plan.
Okay, that was my point.
Yeah.
A lot of the new maps won't have all the old roads on it. They drop them off, that's what I was talking about before. You'll come down inventory roads and not on the maps, and they're no longer accessible. And these roads are still there.
Why were they dropped off?
I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Let's
They
talk,
dropped them because they
All
did.
the roads are
They
not
said
on the
they
map.
did
Exactly
have a
my point.
budget
Yeah,
to
exactly.
But,
keep them listed.
I mean, they're not all meant to be on the map.
That's what I would, why, So
Right.
there's a reason for it.
Yes, there's a reason, we don't put all these roads on the map, because we put the roads on the map that are really more for passenger cars. And some of our maps, some of our national forests, you wouldn't be able to find the map.
No, but
We have
Sharon,
so
their
many
point
roads.
is that we take it off the map because we by default close it, make it off limits, and that's what I'm saying, that is not what happens on the map.
Yeah.
It's not that we gate it because it's not on the map, it's that it's not being used and it may still be there.
They're not being used because it's gated, but it can be.
It could be used.
Those kind of decisions are made through an environmental analysis process, so I want to make sure you all are.
Could we see the analysis then on some of the roads? that are closed?
Absolutely, you come in anytime and you ask, we'll sit down with the engineers and the resource folks and go over specific roads you have questions about.
Because I've got a list of roads
You bring it
all the
in.
way around this area, about 60 miles.
Okay, you bring it in and we'll talk about it, but tonight I want to finish this discussion so we can get through this, okay? Because I want to see your list and then we can spread your questions around, okay?
You can go from Milk Creek, there in Frenchtown, all the way to Superior.
Okay, all right.
And that road is blocked off from Milk Creek, and you can't go nowhere.
You bring it in, all right? You call me up, we'll set a date. Okay, and I'll have the coffee pot on.
I don't drink coffee.
I'll have your green tea for you.
By God, there you go.
So do you guys,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have any green cigarettes.
They need the butt gun.
So I think I heard that we have general agreement that we want to make sure we maintain any existing routes that are there now. Existing legal routes.
And reopen the ones that are closed.
Now that I didn't hear
Opposed to use or
consensus on.
created trails.
Well, one thing you'll find in that area, and I've ridden that for 35 years, is that 90% of all the access to Petty Mountain is mowed. Whether it's open, closed, or whatever. If you go up there on Sunday, the majority of the use up there is gonna be motorized.
And that's not legal.
It's questionable,
Well, the
because
current law of the land, the current forest plan, is not.
well, part of the problem with that was that the original forest management plan and the original forest travel plan were in conflict. So that was where the judge decided to close all that.
Or to honor the forest plan.
But it was, if you talk to the forest management planners that were in that era, they will tell you that the intent was not to close everything. It was to protect it. So that's why the travel plan was different than the management plan. But if someone decides to sue the Forest Service, then they will probably take the management plan over the travel plan as far as their decisions. But this is where the Lolo Forest has the opportunity to, in this new management plan, to get rid of some of those conflicts and go back to a 10. So it can't be sued. So as a motorized user and bicycle user, whatever, I do it all. It's to our advantage to have that classified as, was it 3.1 or 3.3, which would be a
General,
Low
low
intensity
intensity is 3.3. So Larry, let's go through, because we're almost to 3.3, and then we can cover some of your concerns there. We've got the 3.1 special interest areas, and I'm not even seeing it on here. Where is the 3.1?
Okay, probably don't have any special interest.
Well, usually Sharon's just been listing everything that's in there, but maybe there isn't. What color is 3.1?
This, 3.1 is this, the
Oh, okay,
rattlesnake.
yep, you're right, there is none. All right, so it's a big old NA, not applicable. Okay, so now we're to 3.2, which is the research natural area.
That's not what we're discussing tonight.
No, so we've covered that one already. And so we're there, good there. And then 3.3,
None of that either.
was a
Light
little
tan.
bit, wasn't it?
That's
Oh, that's
Not
over in the
Greater
Greater
Missoula.
Missoula area.
That's a greater Missoula area.
Okay, so that one we have none of, that one. Okay, so now we're to 4.1, which is the light brown. There's some here. This is the moderate intensity forest management. Okay. Now, one thing I want to ask you all to consider, because we've heard this across the forest and apparently across the zone, that there is some discussion that folks feel that 4.1 and 5.1, the moderate and the high intensity management, are so similar that it's confusing. And so I've been asked to ask this question tonight: is there any reason that we wouldn't want to take, in this area in particular, there's just this little bit of 5.1, make it all, it would be probably a whole new number, but it would be the same intent of just forest management. It wouldn't say general,
Are you
low,
talking about
high, or,
combining?
yeah.
No, I think the division is a good division.
See, if you think of it in terms of, when you read the actual description, the differences between the two, some folks feel are so vague that, and because we have to go through a NEPA analysis anyway, you could determine the level of intensity that you're gonna do in terms of forest management on any piece of country by your NEPA analysis, and it wouldn't rest in the MA if it was all forest management, generically speaking. So it's something to think about. We don't, if you don't have strong feelings either way, at Lisa, you do, that you kind of like having the
Well, we've
division.
been dealing with this management area that your team came up with now for 2 months.
Right.
So we're accustomed to the differences that they specify.
Yeah,
So
and in this case, let me explain this 5.1. If some of you remember at the big meeting on the 21st, there was a question at the very end that was this a mapping error or not? And I wanted to make sure that I let folks know tonight, this particular area around Lolo Peak, the forest supervisor wanted to just keep things status quo as per what they are now in this area, so that we didn't have too much change. We let people discuss things as they currently are, and then what they wanted to see in the future. So that's why you see this 5.1 here. But what the district is actually suggesting for this area would be a 4.1. So I want to make sure that people understood that. So all of Lolo Creek for timber management is 4.1.
well, my comments here are that this Missoula Scenic River should not have 4.1 adjacent to it. There should be a transition zone here. If you've got backcountry 2.2 over here, this piece right here should be 2.2 in the Missoula Scenic River.
Okay, on either side of
Either
that.
side of it should be 2.2 instead of 4.1.
Okay.
Should be a transition zone.
Okay, other thoughts?
Well, that brings up my point that I brought up earlier. Throwing these designations on there leads to more problems. Because then if you make that 2.2, the Lolo philosophy, that precludes any roads or trails.
You protect the water resource, and that's the most important resource on this forest.
But the water is already protected by current restrictions to wetland management along the rivers. They already have a certain number of feet, and I couldn't tell exactly what it is, on any side of a wetland or a stream that precludes any logging or clear cutting. What you're saying is that now you want to take that quarter-mile corridor that would be under the recreational river designation and extend it to maybe a section on either side.
That's not quite a section, but close to it.
But you see what I'm saying? I mean, it's, that's why I'm opposed to all these feel-good designations.
It looks like it goes right by some Plum Creek or private.
Yeah, it's very
Is it
intermixed in that
private or
area.
Plum Creek?
Most of this is Plum Creek all along. Right next to the creek, you might find
So
some
that Robin scene that
non-industrial
goes along
private.
with the Plum Creek part. I think the preferred option is okay with the 4.1.
You're comfortable with preferred option. Lisa, you'd like to see a little bit of the 2.2
Transition.
here. Okay,
To protect
Kathy?
the creek.
Okay with the 4.1.
Larry, you're okay with 4.1, you just, Lisa's thought is one you don't necessarily agree with the buffer idea here of 2.2.
Well, there's already a buffer there, so.
Okay. Tom? 4.1. All right, so am I safe to say we've got consensus that the 4.1 preferred option is okay here? And Lisa, I'll track your comment about the,
It's not a consensus in that case. Close to agreement, you could say, but it's not
there
a
you go,
consensus.
let's do it that way. We'll put close to agreement, that's good.
You'll also note that they're not looking for the designation all the way to Lolo Creek.
Yeah, I wondered about that, and it must
Lower
be.
2 miles is where the most problem could be.
Well, I'm thinking that when we get to 5.2, we'll discuss this is that kind of intermix, the residences in this area and whatnot. So there may be that there's just so many other uses down there, we didn't bring it down that way. Don't know specifically about that chunk.
That's why I'm saying
Maybe
that
that
2.2 is a good designation because 2.2 allows you to do fuel reduction and you're in a residential area and you're next to a wild and scenic stream proposal and it's not in an active timber production base.
And it would allow for motorized use on existing routes.
No,
2.2?
Yeah, we just agreed it did.
Yeah,
I
it
know,
does.
but
You're suspicious.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
just a
I know.
little suspicious.
until it's in writing, it doesn't count.
It's okay to have that.
But isn't it the case that whatever motorized routes are legal and existing right now aren't going to be closed because the forest plan gets changed? The status of the roads would change only through a site specific thing, right? So
Yes.
even though you say, this area is going to be backcountry, if there's a route through there, it would not close until later.
That's right.
And it might not even close then.
That's right. But
Right.
remember on the Lolo, this was 10, however many years ago, that the decision was made that motorized use was to be restricted to designated routes. So we already don't have the issue of off-road or off-trail
I
type
think
of
we
travel.
need a definition of motorized use. Because
Perhaps,
you've got full-size vehicles
Right.
on a county or whatever road.
Right.
We don't wanna ride ATVs on them all the time.
Right.
Because of the traffic, the dust and everything.
That's right. And that may be the site-specific type of discussion we end up having, Tom, after we get through these land management applications. That what do we mean? What type of vehicles can go on certain routes? But we aren't there at this point in the forest planning process.
But that's kind of an error too, because a long time ago, and Larry probably knows about it more than I do, on that Lantern Ridge area, come back in through from backside of Lolo Peak, they closed that road in there because of a landslide up in that rock slide.
Right.
And that was the only reason why they closed it. They moved the gate all the way down to the bottom so you can't get in or nowhere, even though it is still accessible to
And it's a county road.
Exactly.
That's McLean.
No, it's over on the other side, backside of Lantern Ridge.
Okay, gotcha.
It comes back in from Milk Creek and off of 12. And the only reason that was closed is because of the rock slide.
Yeah.
That's a huge landslide area right there.
It is. But they never opened it back up because of the safety for the people. And that's what they used to close it all the way down to the bottom. Even though it still is accessible all the way up through. You can go all the way up to Mormon Peak.
Yeah.
They took that gate out and moved it all the way to the bottom,
Exactly.
which closed off more than one road.
Yeah.
If they left the gate where it was at, then we would have access up in there to do.
But do you still want to be able to go on areas with such unstable soil?
It's not
They
that
allow
unstable.
hikers and horses.
Yeah. It's not that unstable
Are
on
they-
ATV.
McClay sued
That's
over it.
McLean Creek.
Nobody got hurt.
No, McClay sued over it because it got sediment in the water and he says it damaged his water system.
And he got a $400,000.
$100,000.
The other point I would like to make on any of the 3.1, 4.1,
Well, it was accepted.
is that
I haven't looked yet.
when people who are anti-motorized look at the map and they see that there's a lot of brown on the map,
Well, I know.
it's
must
their
be the company,
feeling that
so,
all of
you know, I
that is
know there's a
open
lot of
and
bad.
motorized use. But if you actually go on ground,
Yeah.
virtually every gate is closed. and it's illegal to be on it with motorized, so we need to make some kind of a better definition on those.
Yeah,
and
no, I've
whether
heard.
they're being managed now as 2.2 basically.
It seems like that came up last year, and that there were a lot of gates that are actually on Plum Creek land that use the same signs as the Forest Service uses, which seems like a really bad idea, because then everybody thinks it's the Forest Service shutting the road down.
It's really, yeah, the co-op agreements in this area are for every road up here with Plum Creek and the Forest Service. So it's true, most of those roads are gated and they have seasonal closures for a variety of different reasons.
Most of them are year-round, they're not seasonal.
Okay.
But the Forest Service, when they negotiate these road contracts, it shouldn't be the public's responsibility to make sure that access is included. It should be the Forest Service responsibility to look out for the public, because we can't go up and comment on every single road and spur road and everything.
Yeah.
And you'll find that you can go to the Forest Service, get on the road, start down it, find out when you get to the bottom, there's a gate on it.
Right.
But the Forest Service should be responsible for making sure the public has access to Forest Service property beyond Plum Creek.
Within its management,
Best management practice.
best management practices.
The Plum Creek has to be concerned about.
Yeah.
Because
If you would agree to stay on those roaded routes that they designate, I would support that.
Well, we just want to be on existing roads and trails.
And so they have no trails designated.
Most forests do have some.
And most of the trails that were on the forest 30 years ago or 40 years ago have been replaced by roads in the lower elevations. I mean, this map here kind of makes that a pretty bold statement. Out of 6 pages of trails there's only going to be 4 or 5 that are not affected by the 2.2 designations. 1.2 recommended.
I'm making a note here that some of you feel that coordination is needed on these co-op roads when we review the co-op agreement with Plum Creek, that we need to be taken into account in different uses for the recreational folks and motorized use. I do not know when we're due to do another overall travel management kind of review of our forest visitors map. You know, we have a lot of pockets of questions that come up across the forest where we'll have folks that say, well, this one doesn't make sense, it's been closed for 10 years and for whatever reason, and that'll force us to take a review of it.
But it says that 2007.
Is that what they say? Yeah,
When that's gonna
and I don't know when it's planned for
It's
the
in the
Lolo,
system.
so, yeah, it could be, that could be exactly what it is. So that would be the time that we would take a look at those kind of things.
Could I ask you a question? Why doesn't each ranger just keep a list of individual roads and trails that are closed?
We do have that list.
I've asked for it several times and nobody could come up with it.
That's when you come in, where you gotta give me a call and then say, okay, Maggie, when I come in, not only do I want a cup of green tea, but I also want to see the list of all the roads and trails that are, you know, what restrictions are on them on the Missoula Ranger District. And so I can get
Clearwater
the
does
folks
out
there
of
to
the
know.
box.
Yeah,
You got a pamphlet that thick.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
but
have
the
this.
travel guide, yeah.
I've got it right here if you want to look at it.
Well, what I'm envisioning, there is the inventory, and it's a big book that you open up and it tells what each road is and what the restrictions are and when it was built and all those different things, yeah. So that's the kind of thing I think you're talking about. So let's make sure we get that when you come in. Okay. So what I put down here for 4.1 is that some felt better definition of the motorized vehicles is warranted in this area. And, I'm sorry, not in this area, you mentioned that you just
Throughout the
need to
whole
maybe
thing, it
redefine.
says motorized.
4.1 in general in this area, the group is okay with close to agreement. One person felt that 2.2 should buffer this 2.1 designation here. but another person felt that that would close off options for the motorized use. And then I mentioned just a generic statement, some feel that coordination on the co-op roads in Lolo Creek is warranted.
Well, then I
I'll add to it
think
when we do traffic planning.
if you actually look on the ground, that entire area right now, other than Elk Meadows Road and a few main roads, is already close to any vehicle use.
Right.
Well, there's that lake just past the Elk Meadows that's got close to.
And that's got an actual road going all the way to the lake. Yeah, but that's on the Idaho side.
Yeah. Okay.
And you might also, there's one trail that's open from Mill Creek to but there's a half mile of the trail that's closed on top that goes to Lolo Peak.
I know where you're talking about, yeah.
And there's a 1 mile section of road that's closed at the bottom.
Right.
So even though there's a 7 mile trail that's open to vehicles, it's a single track, so it'll only be motorcycles or the entire trail is closed because the Forest Service hasn't allowed access from either end. It's open in the middle.
Right. We need to review that one. How about we move on to the 5.2, which is the yellow? In this case, just runs along. I think we picked 1.5 miles or so from the highway on either side, and we took it up as far as the Lolo Hot Springs, because once you get past there, it's not as developed as the rest of the, there's not that many homes and whatnot along there. 5.2 is what we're now calling the kind of the urban interface zone. Does anybody have any questions about that? It's a bit of a no-brainer in my mind.
Well, the Bitterroot Forest has decided to exclude that designation on any other forest.
And what are they gonna do instead?
They said that it's kind of a duplication of well, depending on what the designated use would be adjacent to it.
So they're
Could
like,
also
would be
apply
bringing,
to the urban areas, so they said
they would like bring the 4.1 down to include this yellow.
that's what they would do.
Or
See,
the,
the thing that I like about 5.2 is that it gives, like if I were a landowner in this area and I had a home here, I could rest assured that the things that, the resources or the amenities that are around my home will be as they are. If I had 4.1 down to the highway, there could be any number of commercial timber harvest operations going on right next to the, if the forest, in this case, if this were a piece of forest right here, you might have that going on right there and might have to build a new road or whatever. That doesn't mix with some of the more urban amenities that are right along the highway, which is why for us, we have it along the forest, along most of these main highways and major travel routes. I like it because it allows for fuel reduction opportunities and a lot of special uses happen in this area along the highway. So to me, it wouldn't make much sense to not have some kind of designation like that.
Well, they felt that one of the problems was that it did draw a line.
Yeah.
Where if it was contiguous all the way to the forest, then any special use or permit you would want wouldn't be limited by a line.
Right. Huh. Well,
US 12 running through it because the forest boundary.
that's right, it's up here further, yeah. That's true, they may not have any.
There were some 5.2s.
There was, yeah.
I like
Timber
the,
harvest can be done in that 5 point in the yellow.
It can, if the objective is a fuel reduction. It's kind of a distinction as it is, and the distinction is a commercial timber harvest, which is, more of a traditional timber sale as opposed to fuel reduction and salvage. Yeah, but you're right, Tom, it could be done.
That's the Bitterroot map, and they don't even show that option on there anymore.
Yeah, I see that, interesting. So, any concerns about this? Is there agreement with 5.2 on this particular chunk?
Makes sense.
Okay, we can
I
say
would
that.
like to see some 5.2 a little bit. If you're gonna have it, a little bit closer to the Mill Creek area because they have the backcountry going all the way down almost to the houses.
Okay, where is Mill Creek? How far down?
There's two sections there, or two areas that drop down. It has Plum Creek in between. It's,
But down here?
yeah, it's right.
There it is. Okay, there it is. Okay, so these areas here, you would like to see 5.2 in? All right, now this is the area that's in our preferred option as the, what is 2.2 called? That's the backcountry.
It's already been discussed on Lolo Peak.
Yeah, but I can make a note of it, Larry, that one person would like to have seen that, straighten that down.
Mill Creek's that where the bridge is at, where the road wides out and you got your turn left on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just saying the same concerns that you're expressing for some of these other areas, you know, would be equally as important there.
Okay, into the 2.2 area. Okay, I tracked that comment, Larry. Okay, and then the last one, 6.1. In this case, is this area,
That's the 12 corridor, right?
yeah. And what we suggested here is, see, similar to Blue Mountain and Patty Canyon and the recreation area up at the Rattlesnake, these are more the highly developed kind of sites. But the intent of having it here is not so much for that there's a full site along this whole way, but rather there's a kind of a corridor of campgrounds, picnic areas, dispersed sites. There's the Lolo Pass Visitor Center. It's a pretty highly visible historical kind of route. It's got the Lolo Trail and the Elizabeth Park Trail. Yeah, it's that kind of stuff. And so our intent here was to kind of protect that, the integrity of that historical and recreational corridor. So that's why we designated it as such.
Speaking of the campgrounds, there's 3 campgrounds up there, and one that only has 7 slots in it that no longer has a caretaker.
Is that the Earl Tenant, or is Lee Creek?
It's not Lee Creek. Lee Creek has, I think, is a paid one.
Is that the Earl Tenant
I
that
think
the
it's-
Lolo workstation was at? Uh-huh.
Are you gonna close that down?
The workstation or the campground itself don't have a plan to.
We heard when we were camping up there, they're closing it. I would hate to have that closed.
It has been talked about before, and since I've been here, it has not been talked about, so.
If it's in the area, I mean, if it's in the area we're talking about, if it's possible, I'd like to.
That you don't want to see it closed, yeah, yeah,
I mean, that's nice, but kind of the same reason you want is there's only 7 lots.
yeah.
So it's quiet.
There is though, you know, one of the questions that does come up, Tom, is that there are facilities that are there. There's a structure or 2 there. And the facilities discussion in the Forest Service nationally has taken place that we're being tapped $1.50 per square foot for every one of our government-owned facilities, which is why you're going to see places like the Hungry Horse Ranger Station. It's on the internet right now for sale because the forest can't afford to maintain it. So that is being talked about, taking those buildings up at the Lolo Work Center, which is at the Earl Tenant. Yeah, it's like a garage or something, but it's really useful to us for warehouse type storage. But we may be looking at closing that and aren't sure exactly how that's gonna go. So
But that
may be
wouldn't
what you're
affect the
hearing.
campground.
No.
I hope not.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. But we'd still, if that is still on the docket for review and discussion, that's, we'd be able to weigh in on that. Won't be part of the forest plan decision. So, pretty much consensus on 6.1, the corridor, no troubles there? Okay, all right. No, and that's because we had the meeting about this area on July 21st that focused on it. And so we're trying to keep the conversation tonight to the overall, the rest of the area. But we've told people if there's questions, especially once we get through here, and you weren't here at the 21st, you may have a couple of questions that you want answered. But we're trying to make sure that we got as much as we could from the group tonight about the rest of Lolo Creek.
information.
before we had any other discussion about that. So,
Because you heard from a lot of people that night.
we did.
That meeting went on.
200
Yeah.
odd people
Yeah, at
weighed
least
in on that one, so.
Yeah.
The Bitterroot meeting, they had quite a bit of discussion about the fee.
Did you say fee?
Well, it was
The
the,
fee for, but you were just talking about, we were just talking about.
Oh, no, the facilities, the money, the $1.50 per square foot fee, is that what you mean?
no, this is the user fees.
Oh,
Like
I
at Lake
forget.
Como.
Yeah, like at Lake Como.
I got it, yeah.
Are there any areas up there that would be covered with that?
Well, all of those areas right now are fee areas. You know, that pays, I don't know, it's generally
No,
like
you're
$6.
talking camping or?
Campgrounds,
Well, they've had this test program.
The fee demo,
Right, the fee
right?
demo.
Yeah, and it just got reinstated, Larry, for another, I think, if it's not forever, it's a 10-year kind of thing, but there are some places like in Oregon where they tried under the fee demo, which is a demonstration thing, trial basis kind of deal, to kind of ask people if you're gonna park at a trailhead and use this trail, it's gonna be $10. And you have to put it in this little drop box. And that was one of the things they pulled back on. It was very unpopular, and a lot of people had some consternation about it. But we don't have any of those kind of areas at all in the northern region.
If anybody had taken it.
No, don't have any areas
Because
like
Blue
that.
Mountain doesn't.
It was pretty.
But it was real unpopular.
It was very, yeah.
Yeah. No, there was one or two, one.
So, any other things you guys want to talk about? What time are we at?
8:15.
8:50, oh, boy, we're gonna get done early tonight.
On time, I hope.
Yeah, well, on time would be 10 o'clock.
Oh, that's too late.
You remember a couple meetings ago, we said, should we start making it to 10 o'clock? And we said, yeah, let's go from 7 to 10. But last 2 weeks ago, you all got done at 9. So, yeah, it is plenty. Yeah. We got a little long-winded there for a while. That's why we have this long. So, well, let me do a gut check real quick then with Hey, Beth. We're done with our discussion. This group is in favor of being done by 9. I didn't know if you were doing a once around and see how the other tables are.
Go my son's Jeep in this morning and have her jacket and pants on.
What time?
About 9.
Yeah.
Side drop, low drop.
Okay.
I bet.
Well, we'll just, maybe if we ask Sharon what she thinks, maybe give it another 10 minutes or something, 15 minutes. If we got done at 9:15, we could do it.
If you have that, I mean, as I say, it's not going to support what you want. I knew that. Sorry. That's okay.
Since she had asked a question about the Lolo Peak area, do we want to discuss that? Since we have
Yeah, what specific questions do you have?
Since I know some of the stuff I've read, I just, I see is, I had no idea what even out there anymore, I didn't know where.
Yeah.
I just explained the 90-day public comment period.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so it's not, nothing's done.
There was something on the news today
Yeah,
about this.
yeah, that's why I was surprised nobody talked about it, so.
Yeah,
I think, Tom, what they had, what you have in front of you that was handed out at the door is an update of their proposal. And that they didn't have it available at the July 21st meeting, so they chose to bring it tonight since we're talking about Lolo Creek. But I haven't read that yet, so I don't know exactly what's in it. Did you get a copy? I'm not sure. I wanted to get the update.
we've seen it probably out in the hallway.
I'm not sure.
you're lucky you're not sitting over at that table.
Last year, our meetings, it seemed to me, and maybe I didn't get it right, but in our discussions there, it kind of sounded like the Forest Service, if they were going to kind of have an area from the forest that they may either promote or encourage motorized use, that they're kind of leaning towards Lolo Creek and
in the checkerboard area.
Yeah.
I remember at the Missoula meetings last year, people talked about that.
Well, that was just before I came on, when Don Carroll was still here.
And you did the last few.
Yeah, just the very last few, yeah.
It seemed like the attitude
Yeah.
that a lot of people at the table were that, well, we are gonna promote it, and then
This area
since there
here
was so
might be,
much, well, but see, there's virtually no current use south of Lolo.
yeah.
It's all north of Lolo. Just because of access issues,
Because of those gates that you all mentioned. Yeah.
gates and existing trails, there's virtually
Yeah.
no existing.
So in general, what you're saying is that you would like to look for some loop opportunities for motorized routes in
Well,
this
on the
area.
south side, but it would also be nice if the Forest Service would recognize some of the north side of the park too.
Yeah.
Because that's
But no loop, is that the issue? There are no
there can't be
loops?
loops with 2.2. Now, in the Forest, over the past 6 weeks, they've kind of come to a consensus that the 2.2, most of the existing roads and trails should be open, or at least considered.
Okay, there's very few in there, near as I could tell from that particular map. Yeah, but there was a route or two down there. It's not
Up to the edge.
But I'm not saying, I'm saying existing.
20 minutes. Oh, okay.
You guys have spurred them on.
Okay. Sorry.
They're saying existing routes should be looked at. Because historically, they've been motorized.
Right. That's what you guys are saying.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that.
But where we have real concerns is that the general attitude of the Lolo Forest has been to restrict public rather than look for opportunities for the public to access the forest. Sound issues, damage issues and all that seem to always come down against the motorized, even though they've done a really good job of addressing the sound in that over the past 20 to 30 years. The Forest Service just released their vehicle report yesterday. And according to the vehicle report, there's 29.1% of the population over 16 in Montana own and participate in off-highway vehicle recreation. So my question to the Lolo Forest is, Dale Bosworth says you have to address this issue. It doesn't look to me in the management plan that you guys are addressing the issue at all.
Well, I'm begging to differ with you. I don't get, out of those numbers, I don't see direction from the chief that says I have to address that issue. And by saying address the issue, you mean I have to provide more motorized routes? Yeah, I understand that, but I'm not sure. See, Larry, I don't think that Dale Bosworth is suggesting that we provide, that we open up more areas. I think it's more quality opportunities. We work with the motorized community to provide areas that are loop trails. We've heard that nationally for many years, that you all want loop trails, that disabled folks want to have places that aren't special, but equal, places that are open to, like for disabled hunting kind of opportunities, places that are not special designated areas that only disabled folks can go into. But those kind of things I've been hearing for 10 years or more, but not necessarily open up more roads and more trails to motorized use just because there aren't very many. My point is that it's more of a quality kind of experience that we're after. Would you agree with that, or?
I agree, we want a quality experience.
So that's why I was begging to differ with, when you were offering the numbers, you were suggesting that I needed to deal with that issue just because there's people that own these.
Well, I think the Forest Service has to be cognizant of for recreation of the public and what they need,
Right.
because it is public land.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that we are, but I think it's an issue being new to the Missoula district, not new to the Forest Service.
I don't think it's unique to the Missoula district.
No, being my being new to the district,
Yeah.
I'm still getting familiar with the folks in the motorized community. My sense is that there's a lot of folks like Larry that want to come in and say about, let's sit down and look at the different places that we've got opportunities, and when an opportunity comes up for us to review, we're going to do it collectively, not in a vacuum. So those are the kind of things that I'm hoping we can do. This isn't the process to do it in, it's more of a site-specific process for us.
But I've addressed the issue with you in the past, past up to 20 years. The people in charge of recreation to the motorized, they won't talk to us, they won't communicate with us.
Yeah, I had that feeling. Who were those two guys that came in and visited with us at the Forest Leadership Team just 3 months ago? Is it the guy that owns the shop?
Bob Sowers.
Polaris.
Kurt.
Kurt, that's it. That was it. They came in and they wanted us to start a kind of a collective review across the forest, and we said, you bet. So I didn't get the feeling we had open hostility. I think it's just we got to sit down and look at maps and look at specific areas that we can make these opportunities happen. But I have to say that in the forest planning process, this isn't the place to look at site-specific trail and road motorized routes. We're looking at these more broad allocations, which is the right thing for us to be doing, and you all are weighing in that, yeah, you like this broad allocation, but you want to see some of these motorized routes be made available. That's not a problem, because this designation doesn't close that, and neither does this up here.
Well, I want to comment on your 29% number of ownership. That doesn't mean that 29% of the people who own those vehicles are using them on the national forest. Half of that is clearly used on farming and ranches. Yeah.
Well, no, that's not exactly what I said. And this is a
You said
Forest
ownership,
Service.
though.
This is a Forest Service study.
Yeah, and they said they went to the manufacturers and they got that number as ownership. And that doesn't say where it's used.
Well, I'm strictly going by what the law says. And it says the percent of the population participating in OHV recreation. So
Maybe they consider their job recreation.
that's over 16 years of age.
Yeah.
So I know from my personal experience, and I ride somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 miles a year. And in a normal year, I won't see more than 1 or 2 hikers on the trail, and I won't see more than 1 or 2 horses on the trail. This year, for example, we've gone almost 1,000 miles. I've seen 2 hikers and 1 horse actually on the trail. I've seen 2 at a trail and the 1 horse and the 2 hikers that I saw within 50 foot of each other.
Do you think maybe that's because the hikers and riders choose to go on trails so that aren't designated motorized?
Well,
I think that's why you're not seeing them.
and that's been my point all along here, that there's plenty of opportunity for non-motorized recreation. So why is everything closed down?
The thing problem is, it's not gonna get any better either. In 2003, according to the NHRVA, which is the National Off-Highway Drivers Vehicle Association, there's 36 million ATVs registered that have been sold. And they figure in 5 years it's gonna double it. So the problem we got right now is just starting. If we don't have something opened up and kept open, where's everybody gonna go?
Well, in my community, they ride, kids under 16 ride on the public road.
But that's up to the parents. The parents should go out and do
Yeah,
it.
it is, but they have ownership to the vehicle, but it's not used in the national forest.
But you see, if the parents let them ride, then nobody's to blame but the parents.
It is
Since
it's
this just
just
came out, I haven't had a chance to go through it. I came up with this. is, did come from the Forest Service. It's not coming from the ATV Owners Association.
Well, that's where they took the number.
Right, and that
Purchase.
data collection.
Purchase of the vehicle. It doesn't say where it's used.
But I do have actual sales figures. There's been over 40,000 ATVs and off-road motorcycles sold, new units, the last 2 years, which means that one out of 20 people in Montana bought a new one in the last 2 years. Sorry, I've got my figures wrong. It's one out of
Okay, so I bought 3.
Right, and that's, those goose figures, if one person buys 3, then
Third one,
But it doesn't
one of the
take-
new ones.
that
Really?
doesn't take into
They didn't take it back?
consideration existing.
He traded me.
It's just brand new.
That's good.
Are you in agreement with that?
Well, anything else you guys want to talk about? Looks like some of the groups are winding down.
I hate to take up the question on the general Lolo management plan. I haven't addressed it,
Okay,
and that's organized and competitive events. I know in the past, the Forest Service has decided that it's not, at least the Lolo Forest has decided that competition events that would be considered racing are not considered appropriate.
appropriate, right?
But competition events that would be a timed type event would be. You know what the next one is proposing?
We are addressing across the forest certain activities that we have a desired condition for. And I have been charged with writing the narrative for extreme sports, and I bet you that we'd be in that what you just explained would be considered part of that.
For what, well,
In our desired condition, Larry, I can tell you now would be that if it was a timed event, that it was, things were at a certain pace, we might be more amiable to having that on public land. But I think that we would generally speaking say, if it's something that would have risks in terms of people's health, general public safety, insurance, liability kind of issues, we don't have standards that are developed, that are in place that can protect the general public or the participants. So, and all those kind of activities fall under a special use kind of permitting process. So a whole different type of arena. So the only thing I know to equate it to is the technical riding that mountain bikers are doing on a variety of places, public land and private land. And that's one that nationally the Forest Service has said we aren't going to permit it because we don't have a standard that we can build structures for that will ensure the safety of people that know how to use that and then the general public. So I'm taking a lot of criticism for that decision. Most people are pretty upset about that.
Is that the reason why we don't have any types of OHV park in Montana?
On public land, it very well could be.
well, there are though.
But there may be some on private land.
No, the Forest Service actually issues a permit at Hungry Horse for a motocross track.
There you go. Now see, in that kind of setting, the person or the group that does the motocross event, are they a sanctioned group that they have their own liability insurance in the place that it's
Different.
and that's the issue. That's the big issue.
Our competitive event that we ran started from Jackson and went over Petty Mountain down into Deep Creek and back again. We had a permit for that 10 years in a row.
Okay.
The last year we did it was 88. But we did run it through that area 10 years in a row before the Forest Service permit.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking competitive, I'm
Right,
talking
you're
like the
talking
Pine
organized.
Trail, the Hatfield McCoy Trail,
Yeah.
you know, the Moab Trail in Utah.
Right.
You know, that's a full year-round OHV park that is maintained and they do.
Right.
If something like that was established, I personally think that there would be less damage done in other areas because people would go there instead of other places.
I would agree with you. I'm thinking of Moab in particular. They could have had people all over hither and throw if they didn't have, but it's really designated, isn't it? I mean, you can only go on certain routes. So
See, and that's if we get designated trails designed in here, people are gonna be on them. And it's gonna be up to us to do the policing, you know, that's what the 180 signal is. If you see somebody doing something wrong, you push your own people and you call in that way.
So again, I think the answer and the timing for these kind of discussions is gonna be when we do the travel management plan across the forest. And like Lisa was saying, it's planned for the Bitterroot in 2007, and I don't know when it's planned yet for the Lolo.
Well, the Bitterroot is actually supposed to be releasing the travel management map.
Not this year.
That's what they told me. Now, it might just be the Darby district or Missoula.
They are not even gonna start to work on it until this is finished.
And
Well,
it
it
may
might
be
not
that
be a new plan, it might just be
it's just a
better
reprinted map that, yeah, they're trying
That's
to
possible,
do,
a reprint.
they're trying to go to larger scale maps now. So the whole Bitterroot, if it's now on one map, it may be two, and that may be the one that they're not.
I appreciate that.
Because the current way they're doing it is so confusing that most of the time if you approach someone with a Forest Service and ask them about a specific trail, there's either a lot of confusion or they can't tell you. Or you can ask 3 different officers.
Does the Lolo National Forest have an ATV ranger like Monty down in the river?
We don't have an ATV ranger. We have, it's specific to like our needs. In Missoula, we have 3 separate rangers. We have a ranger for Rock Creek. We have a ranger for mountain bikes in the greater Missoula area primarily. And then we have a wilderness ranger.
Is it because ATV is starting to grow more and more that there just hasn't been one assigned to it?
Well, in Missoula, we don't have as much need for permanent, like full-time person devoted to that in the summer months. But we do for mountain bikes and for wilderness, and the rock creek use is heavy, very heavy. So down in the Bitterroot where Monty is, he's down at Darby, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sula.
Hey, Larry, thanks for coming down.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
We'll see you next
So,
time.
in 5 more minutes, if we can wrap up in 5 minutes. Some of the tables are done. And then we can begin our report out,
Okay,
okay?
you guys okay with me reading? Does anybody else want to read?
No, you did fine.
How about, we begin with the report outs. Andy, you wanna go first? Andy, you want a microphone? Did you guys,
Thanks, I think the folks are here. Our group, in 1.1, we had one comment right off the bat is in the desired condition.
1.1?
1.2.
Okay.
The desired condition is real unclear. It says recommended wilderness and it looks like the whole upper part of the drainage. So that needs a little bit of
Yeah, on that map.
a little bit of clarification,
Yeah. Oh,
caused some confusion there. But we had kind of divided into 2 pieces. We talked about the Granite Creek area, and we had about 5 folks who would like to make it like the existing in the current plan, which would be to extend it from the preferred option to the south. And we had 5 people that way, and we had 3 people who wanted to make it 2.2 as a buffer to the wilderness. Then we talked about South Fork Lolo Creek, had some discussion on that, and 3 folks would like to make it backcountry with the same concept as a buffer to the wilderness, and 5 people would like to keep it as proposed. On the Wild and Scenic River, we had 4 people in our group who supported it but had no real strong feelings about it, and we had 5 people who were kind of opposed it, had no real strong feelings, but felt it was already protected and they thought it should be made the same as the adjacent management areas. In the 2.2 backcountry, we had total agreement.
To do what?
Good question.
Wait, I'm just on. In 3.3, special interest areas, we had some fascinating discussions about Mary's Frog Pond, and we had total agreement.
you like us to apply? Is that why you say that was such a, intonation? Yeah.
Sure. In fourth, we had no 3.2, we had no 3.3. We had, for 4.1, we had 3 people who thought that the checkerboard areas should stay 4.1, but that the large blocks, the 2 large blocks should be changed to 3.3. And we had 5 folks in our group who felt that it should be left as is, but we should open some of the closed roads for ATVs and motorcycles only, and install 40-inch gates. And the clubs would maintain, the motorized clubs would maintain these roads. And the philosophy was to use some of the existing roads for motorized recreation. It didn't mean use them all, but it meant as a concept, look at existing roads for motorized recreation.
Andy, I'm sorry, was that in the large blocks or throughout the 4.1 in general?
I think it was throughout on a case-by-case basis, on a road-by-road basis. We had support for motor use on some of the roads in the existing 4.1, and a comment there that the Lolo needs to analyze what's a reasonable projection for timber harvest in 4.1, but do it on a geographic area by geographic area, indicating the Lolo Creek might be different and might warrant a different harvest level for 4.1 than 4.1 in other geographic areas. And then in residential 5.2, we had 3 folks felt that it was okay, but that we shouldn't have as rigorous or rigid a 1 1/2 mile rule or line, that we should use political boundaries and more logical boundaries, and for example, refine where we have some little tiny, where going the 1 1/2 mile off of Highway 12 leaves some little tiny slivers of other management areas. They thought it should be kind of tied together better that way. We had 4 folks that felt that west of Howard Creek and Howard Creek, the 5.2 should be 4.1. We had 1 person who was comfortable with it as it is and no change. And we had 3 folks who felt they were not informed enough to take a position. And in 6.1, there was total agreement in our group.
Thank you. Meg?
I'll go next. 1.2 recommended wilderness. We didn't agree as a table. The loop trails requested in the Granite Pass area, folks in the motorized community at our table felt that they'd like to see some motorized loop trails in that area, and disabled access is a concern. Just about split evenly with the wilderness recommendation up on the Granite Pass area. Half of the folks here were in favor of the preferred option and half were not, and wanted us to check into what the Clearwater National Forest is doing on the other side. So more of that edge mapping kind of stuff we need to do. 2.1, the Wild and Scenic River designation. 2.1 is okay with this group as long as it remains in the recreational status. There's some suspicion as to whether or not that even the recreational status eventually promotes some closure to some certain uses. 2.2 backcountry areas. The group agreed with the 2.2 designation, but some folks wanted to ensure that motorized use on the legal existing routes was ensured. There were no 3.1 areas, nor 3.2 or 3. 4.1, some of the folks here felt better definition of the motorized vehicles is warranted. And what we talked about here was that perhaps we need to do some defining of what types of motor vehicles are what. We know that you all mentioned that the ATVs don't necessarily just want to go on the forest roads, and perhaps some of the trails, like you all said, might be, some of the roads might be better utilized as trails that have been closed to larger motorized vehicles. In general, the group felt 4.1 was okay. 1 person felt that the 2.2 designation, the Wild and Scenic River designation, should buffer that 2.1 rather than be 4.1. 1 person felt that closing off the 2.1 Wild and Scenic River designation again closed off options for motorized use. 5.1 general forest use, there wasn't any, but we did talk about how, I put in the same box here so we didn't lose it, Sharon. I want to make sure we track this. Some people feel that in general those large blocks in Lolo Creek with the Plum Creek country, we need to do a little bit more coordination with Plum Creek on the roads that are closed and how we might better manage for motorized opportunities in there. 5.2, that residential and forest intermix, the group generally agreed. One person suggested 5.2 south in Mill Creek should be moved into the 2.2 designation. Did I say that right, Larry? You should move the 5.2, that intermix, into the 2.2. Right, in that area that is the Plum Creek. And then we had total agreement on 6.1.
Karen?
Well, we had total agreement on a whole bunch of them.
Great.
I think darn near all.
Yeah.
I think all. Let's see, 1.2. 9 in favor of keeping what is and want to increase it some to, want to increase 1.2 to include Carlton Ridge all the way to the RNA at the 6,800 foot level north of Carlton Ridge. 2.1, 9 in firm agreement with the preferred option. 2.2, 9 in agreement of increasing, including the Lolo Peak Trailhead and surrounding area to 2.2. However, this is the one chink in our 9 in agreement thing, is that two of the 9 had a concern over the emergency designation and a concern over the definition and allowable activity to repair and maintain the Carlton Lake Dam. 3.1, all okay as is. 3.2, research natural areas wanted to increase. 9 in agreement, but want to expand the existing RNA to the west to incorporate wet areas originally proposed by the scientists at section 23. 3.3, want to increase. 9 in agreement to put Lee Creek below to Lolo Pass into 3.3. 4.1, we had 9 in agreement of changing 4.1 to 3.3 from Lee Creek to Lolo Pass, both sides of highway, in recognition of recreation values. There's a lot of concern over to separate skiers from the snowmobilers in Lolo Pass. 5.1, 9 in agreement of moving 5.1 to 4.1, and wanted to register a concern with the soils for roads management and road construction. So we added that in. 5.2, 9 in agreement to consolidate Forest Service lands through exchanges and purchases. 6.1, 9 in agreement to keep as is but do not increase.
Don?
Okay, in 1.2, we had a good discussion on that. Everybody agreed that it's okay as mapped. However, 3 people thought that 1.2 should be managed for multiple recreation uses. So, leave the option open for motorized use. 2.1, once again, we had a good discussion. All that came out of that, we didn't come out with any agreements or disagreements, but we came out with some questions. And one is, what is the maximum limit for a corridor width? We say in there, and it says a minimum of a quarter mile each side. It doesn't say a maximum, so we'd like to have that defined. And then there was a question, if a segment is wild, can we use motorized, i.e. an excavator, to do fish habitat improvement projects in there? Don't know. And third question, how does 2.1 affect bordering MAs? For instance, when it comes out of the proposed wilderness and travels through a 4.1, does that affect its management or its width? We don't know that. 2.2, we had total agreement on existing motorized uses should continue in the Petty Mountain 2.2 area. And then we had, also under 2.2, we had a couple of people that wanted the 2.2 near Lolo Pass to be managed as 6.1, but we had some that were opposed to that. 3.1 was okay. 3.2 was okay because that had been mostly covered at the last meeting. 4.1, we had agreement on 2 things. One, in the write-up, both in 2 places it says motorized road base recreation opportunities, and they'd like to see road based stricken. they don't want that in there. And then we also want some dual-purpose roads designated in 4.1. Ones where we can put ATV and full-size vehicles on the same road. Right now, if you're not street legal, you can't go on those roads. People would like to see some roads available for that. 5.2 generally agreed. 6.1, the same ones that we covered on 2.2. Some of them wanted to see more 6.1. And then a couple other notes. We had 5 people that would like to have a balance of resource uses across the Lolo forest. For instance, if one geographic area restricts a use, there should be a corresponding increase somewhere else on the forest so that it balances out. And then someone suggested that at the next meeting we discuss access and lock gates. That's it.
Thank you. Again, these notes, and I will confess to being bottlenecked, the notes have been sent to me and haven't gotten them posted on the website yet. Been fairly busy the last couple of weeks. But these notes will be posted on the Forest Plan Revisions website. And for any of you that weren't here the last go around, we do have some of their newsletters put on the back table if you'd like a copy of their newsletter. And it does have the website address on there. So you can see not only your notes up on the web, but the notes from all the other plan revision folks as well. And so Don, you had a good lead-in to what do we do at our next and last meeting.
There we go. Yeah.
And so I will take a few notes, and I know you had a couple ideas that you might want to start out
I
with.
do. So the place I want to start from for next time, or for thoughts on next meeting and the final meeting, include first thought. I'd like to know what you all think about gathering up together and discussing all the different agreements that we've had over the last 2 months. What the district staff and I will do between now and September 1st is sit down and go through all the comments we've had in all these meetings, and we'll try to tease out those that were consensual in nature and those that were different suggestions for different management area allocations. And I suspect we'd have a pretty good list, and we would bring those to this group and see if there's any more discussion we need to have on them. And then from there, they'll go to the forest leadership team and the planning team. And what will happen, I think, what we're probably going to do as a forest in October when we go out to the general public for the 90-day review is some things may be evident to the general public that either one option would be that they would either become part of the preferred option that the forest will deliver to the general public, or there will be a cover letter that goes with the draft that says, here's what we heard from all this collaborative effort over the last few months. Tell us what you think about this before it becomes part of the plan. I'm not sure which way the forest will go with that, but those things will be tossed about. So there may be some value in us as a group meeting and taking some time at our last meeting and talking about all the different things that we kind of talked about and agreed to and debated over the last few months. So I throw that out for any suggestions, and then we got a couple others to discuss. Any thoughts? Yeah, Dirk.
Maggie, for some period of time now, the Forest Service has been able to control the conversations for the most part in the subject matter and the way that we've all been involved. How about asking the question of the public, what have we missed?
Okay, at our last meeting.
Ask it tonight and we can talk about it at our last meeting.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, Sharon, you're catching some of this stuff.
You know, the other thing that comes to mind is we can have additional meetings, but this is to get stuff rounded up
Right,
for
right.
the plan revision team so they can get it out to the general public.
Yeah, yeah.
So we could have even another meeting after the next meeting.
Right.
The first one.
Okay, so good suggestion. I'm thinking that we probably are wearing thin this evening, so probably won't spend too much time, but that I would think could be a good question for us to discuss next time. If we have 2 hours to meet, we probably won't take it all up on one particular topic. So what things have we missed? Yeah.
I just got a question about, when do all of these agreements and disagreements and all this kind of stuff we've been talking about, when does that have to be presented to the Secretary of Agriculture or whoever has the say-so on it?
what happens, the process from here is that we gather all this stuff up and the forest planning team takes all the input that we've brought together and they bring it to the forest leadership team and we decide if we think it should go into the draft plan that goes out for the 90-day review. Or it could be that they tell people, here's what we heard, we're not sure we're putting it in there yet, but still it's out for review. After the 90-day review, then the team takes it back and takes into account all the general comments we get from the public, weaves it into what is the final plan that's due out next summer. Am I right about that? Yeah, next summer? So because it's a categorical exclusion under this new forest planning regulations, it is not subject to appeal. And so if a person wants to litigate it and sue, then you might, I'm treading right on the thin ice. There's a what?
A 30-day protest.
Okay, a 30-day protest period.
Right, that has to be resolved, and then it goes.
Into effect. Okay.
That's 30 days, that's what, 2006? Correct.
That would be next summer, fall-ish, about a year from now. Right. That's what the process is.
Okay.
And then everything that we've allocated to staff becomes the Lolo Forest Plan.
Does that have to be passed by Congress law then?
No,
It doesn't.
no. The things that need a congressional action, Larry, include wilderness. So we would have recommended some areas for wilderness, but they will not actually become wilderness until the delegation of Montana, the congressional delegation, takes back to Congress and says, we've got this, the wilderness bill, we
Passes
want to
that
put
law
in.
then.
Yeah. Other thoughts? Yeah,
This
Howard?
90-day comment period, will there be public meetings like this?
Yeah.
Or is it all paper, mail, and telephone?
It'll be
calls?
different. There'll be open houses across the forest, and I don't think we'll have this level of kind of dialogue like we have in this more intimate fashion, but we'll have many meetings across the forest, yeah.
You guys are so knowledgeable in the process now and all the MAs, I think you'll be able to read that document a lot better than, somebody living in Illinois or something that might be interested in the Lolo National Forest. You'll just be able to read it and understand everything in them. You'll have some good comments.
Yeah. So back to, if I get a sense from you, does the notion of us bringing a list of all the different agreements we've come to, and if not agreements, the general areas of kind of interest and concern, we could bring those to the next meeting? And it may be that we just like post things for review and maybe whatever dialogue we get out of it, we get. Yeah, Daphne, hang on just a sec. Susan, you had a question?
I would really like to see the overall designation of land for the entire Lolo National Forest and be discussed at the last meeting. I feel very strongly that, we seem to be working in a very small, we're only working in this area.
Okay.
And I'd like to see how what we've been doing fits in to everybody else.
Okay, and
have that a focal point of the next meeting.
Okay.
I don't know that we, to be perfectly honest, we'd be able to get it all together from the other 4 ranger districts by 2 weeks.
But you have this preferred thing at least, don't you?
The preferred option, what?
I'd like every table to have what the preferred option is for the entire forest.
That's what you have there.
Oh, that is?
Mhm. Yeah, and it won't change. The map won't change yet, Susan.
And that's all?
Yeah, the map
Yeah.
probably won't change for another month.
Yeah, it'll be a little while.
By the time we get around to getting all this stuff plugged into a new map.
Yep. Daphne?
Going back to your suggestion about having everything that we've discussed, to what end?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think, I'm suggesting this and I think, I don't know where to cut it off. I don't know if it'd be just these really places that we had violent agreement or, things that are no-brainers. I don't know. But it feels to me like you all deserve to see some fruits of your labor. So that's kind of what my thought was. So I'm going to have to talk to the district staff and see how we can best do that. So that's one option. So I thought I could at least bring those, and it may be that we don't spend a whole lot of time talking about it, but at least you see some of the general areas that we've had some focus on over the last couple of months. Another thought is what Dirk, you mentioned, that we could have some, ask the question, what kind of things have we missed? A last kind of chance effort to gather some information from the collaborative groups, and I think that's a great idea. One that we didn't spend much time on here, but we may want to take some time at the last meeting, and that's relative to the roadless areas in Missoula County. And this is part of the Missoula County Commissioner's effort to be responsive to Governor Schweitzer's question about what roadless areas are included here, how might they be changed, what's the public sentiment about it? Does the county commission want to bring something forward to the governor relative to that?
Speaking of the commissioners, do you know when they have to turn in their stuff to
They
the
do
governor?
have a date.
I was gonna say January.
Can't remember the number of days they had, but they would like us to have something to them, you know, in the next month or two.
The governor had 18 months from the date of the signing of the roadless bill.
So, any thoughts about that? Is it worth having a, we don't have that many.
Would we be able to do all that?
I don't know.
I mean, that almost sounds like a whole other, I mean, things we've been talking about feed into that, obviously.
Right.
So it would take some fairly delicate tuning.
It may be that it's one of those meetings, like Sharon said, that we roll into sometime later in September. We have a meeting that's specific to roadless, so, you know, and not try to squeeze it into that night.
I mean,
Sure.
would there be a danger of showing all the agreements and then we get into the roadless and all of a sudden we're off to the races again?
Yes,
It's like,
let's not do that.
uh,
Yeah, and that's just that was another option, that maybe we don't do anything other than talk about roadless next meeting. So I'm just throwing out the different options that I had in my mind. Sharon?
I think we may have, you know, through all the mapping that we've done over the last 5 or 6 meetings, we probably have a lot of agreements that we've already reached on the roadless areas, 5 or 6 roadless areas in
Could be,
Missoula County.
yeah.
So there may be very little additional discussion.
Yeah,
We've been discussing them as we go along,
right.
so.
Okay, yeah, just kind of thinking out loud here.
How are you defining agreement?
Sorry?
How are you defining agreement?
Well, just on the notes that we've been filling out at the tables here, you know, the forms that generally have agreement. And there may only be 3 or 4 of them. You know, Dale, it's not like we've had a whole lot of large areas of agreement. One thing that came up at our leadership team meeting was that across a variety of ranger districts across the zone, the question of 4.1 and 5.1 has come up, that, you know, that's something that people think we might want to just have 1 designation instead of 2, and 3.3 is real low intensity management. But that question hasn't come up that much here. But it may be that we, as we tease out some of those notes that we took, we might see that that's an issue that came up, and we might list that as a place that might be carried through. Yeah, Steve?
Yeah, I'm liking that roadless idea more because it would be an important source of information for all the folks up the line. The commissioners, governor, et cetera, as a public-based, diverse opinion.
Right.
A lot of different people over a very long period of time.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be a really important piece of data.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons that we were thinking that the roadless discussion might be important is because you all may feel that you've gotten what you needed about, you know, from coming to these meetings, and maybe you feel like you're done. And you'll see fruits of your labor as it comes out in the preferred option. So what I could do is spend, you know, I could post a couple of things that were key kind of areas where there was some interest and some attention given. But then we could move into the discussion specific to roadless. That's an option. And I don't mean to make it too fuzzy here if it feels like it's just a little bit too unclear, but I think it would be good to have some focus to our last meeting that we're together, that you can still feel like you leave having given some good input. And the roadless one would be very valuable input for us. We will have to have some discussion that's specific to that at some point, so it's a good time to do it. Any other thoughts?
I just was agreeing with you on that.
You were agreeing? Yeah. Okay. Tom?
Am I the only one that's even brought up disability access at all at any of these meetings?
I don't know.
And
Have other
has
folks heard?
ADA ever been approached about this stuff?
Yes.
Have they? Yeah, so other folks have heard concerns on disabled use?
No, that the ADA addresses it.
Okay.
They have addressed it. And is there any record of that being addressed at all, or?
We'll have to have that discussion.
Yes.
It's being challenged at great length.
Any other thoughts for our last and final meeting? I'm hearing that perhaps we could do some run through of some of the general areas of attention and consensus agreement and where to from here kind of thing.
Someone had brought up talking about locked gates and access.
Oh yes, locked gates and access, right? Yeah. The thing my hesitation to any new stuff is that you all leave here feeling, oh, you know, kind of, you know how you go to the movies and you end up with you want to end with a blockbuster kind of ending, you know, and you don't want it to leave all feeling kind of like you didn't have a big powerful punch at the end. So I want to make sure that it's worthwhile to come. Yeah, Larry?
Well, I personally think that this governor's roadless area situation is totally separate from this planning management.
Maybe
It might
so.
be more effective to have that discussion later in September with just the county commissioners. That's all we talk about.
Yeah? You agree with that, Susan? Other folks? Would you come to a meeting that was specific to roadless? Do you know other folks that would come? Maybe that would be the way to go.
Well, I'd hate to see all of what we've done here, which pertains to that, lost. So if that could happen, what Larry's suggesting, but somehow have this carried to that discussion.
Yeah. Well, it's
because there's been a tremendous, it's a question of efficiency.
Right.
And use of resources
Yeah.
and all the time we've
Yeah.
spent.
Well, I'm thinking what we'll do, it seems like there's not like violent, you know, enthusiasm for it. I see people yawning and probably getting ready to head home. But what I think we'll do is we'll bring the summary of some of the stuff that we've covered over the last couple of months. We'll offer an opportunity to discuss some roadless, and if it looks like we need to do a separate meeting, even so, we can do that. But like Sharon and I have talked, that we don't think that the roadless in Missoula County is so huge that it's going to take a full 2 hours. It may be something that we can capture enough information for the county commissioners that we get in a half an hour. And we could try to shoot for that. Tom?
At that next meeting, will you have some type of a breakdown as to what motorized is, single track, double track, logging road?
I don't, Andy, do you think, I don't think we would have that here.
I mean, because this, you know, shutting down a road, is it shutting down a trail, is it shutting down a road, you know? It needs to be defined as to what is what.
I'm thinking that that's more detail than we'd be prepared to offer at the last meeting, Tom.
Is there any chance you will have a detail of that at all?
Well,
Because I mean to say there's no roads in this area, are you excluding or including trails?
Why is that such a problem to?
Because not all of us want to travel on roadways. We want trails to go down.
Why is it such a problem for those guys to provide what you're asking for? Pass out, you don't have to spend almost the time on it.
yeah, I'm just trying to get my head around how to pull all that information together if it's a workload we don't have time to do between now and 2 weeks. But and I'm not even certain I understand exactly what you're asking.
Well, there needs to be some definition as to whether it's a single track trail for walking purposes or for motorbikes, or if you can use a trail for an ATV.
Right. Well, we can
if it's
bring
a
our
horse
traffic
trail.
plan maps with us, and we can pull that information out while we're here with you. We could bring that with. That's not a problem.
What do you want in that definition? I'm not sure what you wanted.
I want a clearer definition as to what is a road, what is motorized use.
What is a road?
No, what is it a road for vehicle traffic? Is it a road strictly used for single track motorcycles? Is it a road strictly for motorcycles or ATV, a limited width-wise? Can you take a truck? Correct. Can you take a truck?
That shows on our travel plan.
And that's what I'm thinking, Andy. We could bring a few copies of that, Tom, and maybe we can get some specific time with you to talk about that. Okay, so it's feeling like we may have a little bit of a loose-knit meeting, but the two things we know we can talk about next time would be the summary of agreements that we've come through this last couple months with, and then have some time given to the roadless discussion. Sorry?
And
what have we missed?
And what have we missed? Yeah, so we could have a little general discussion.
So think about that, you know, maybe over the next couple of weeks, jot down some things that you may have thought that we missed.
Right.
That you'd like to see us.
Right. And in closing, I wanted to say, remember when we started 2 months ago, we talked about, you know, if we get focus on desired condition here, then, hang on just a second, this is going to be really profound. And if I don't say it now, I'm sure I'm going to lose it. So we talked about how we really, if we could focus on the desired condition and we could come out of here with all of your input on how we want this land to look in the next 15 to 20 years, that would be huge. Because remember, if you remember the very first night, we rattled off a whole bunch of stuff we thought you all could cover for us. And by golly, we ended up focusing on the desired condition in those management areas. And the work you guys have done for us has been huge. We've got great input from the Missoula district community. And I'm just thrilled to have it, as they've gotten on the other districts as well. So the leadership team is feeling really, really fortunate and really good about the work that we've done in all of our communities. So I wanted to thank you for all the time and energy you've given to this. I really appreciate it. So, ma'am, you had a question or
I was
comment?
hoping next time you could come with some sort of a sense of the probability of the things we've agreed on will actually end up in the forest plan.
I don't know that I'd be able to give any more then than I would tonight, and that is that our intent is to take it to the planning team and then to the forest leadership team. And like I think might happen that there may be some things like this 4.1 and 5.1, the general consensus across the forest is let's just have one forest management designation. That may be one that goes into the preferred option out to the public. But there may be others that we just don't feel we're ready to go there yet. And so it may go out to the general public with a cover letter that says, here's some of the stuff we got from the community groups. And we are leaning in this direction. But we want to hear from the rest of the public before we put that into the plan. So you may see some of that. So the probability is something I don't think I could deliver between now and 2 weeks. So, but it was a good question. So anything else before we close out? All righty. Thanks again for coming, guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks.